Next, we have Father Thom Hennen, who's not only our audiovisual engineer today, he's our Vicar General for the diocese. He's the pastor of Sacred Heart Cathedral, and he also has worked extensively with the Courage Ministry with the LGBTQ+. And so that's what he's here to talk about, this really difficult spot that the church finds itself in some ways as far as ministering to that community. So have at it.
Now, okay. Like I say, they always give me the easy stuff. So, so part of the reason I'm up here is for the last almost 8 years now, I've been working with the Courage Apostolate. For those who don't know what that is, it was founded in 1980 by Father John Harvey in New York, specifically as a Catholic outreach to same-sex attracted men and women. And it sought to do that in a way that was, faithful to Catholic teaching. It is approved by the Vatican, and so we, about 8 years ago, said we're not really doing anything in this area, and so we started to explore what's out there and what we would feel comfortable kind of moving into from what's out there, and so ended up going to a conference and then working with Father Jerry Kopacik up in the Archdiocese of Dubuque, who had already started a Courage Apostolate, and Encourage. Encourage is kind of the counterpart to that. It is for family members and loved ones and parents and siblings of LGBTQ Catholics, and so I started doing that about 8 years ago. And also in the last 2.5 years or so, our diocese has been working with a committee within the diocese that's composed of Bishop, myself, Lynn Devaney, our Superintendent of Catholic Schools, Marianne Agnoli, Tiara Hatfield, who's our HR person at the diocese, Emily Prees, and kind of discussing how the pastoral approach basically within the diocese to those that identify in some way under that umbrella of LGBTQ. As we know that they are coming to our parishes, to our schools, to our faith formation programs. So we've been kind of wrestling with some of that in the last 2.5 years. How can we better encounter them, accompany them on that journey? So I'm going to share with you just a few things that I have learned from my Courage ministry that I've been doing over the last 8 years that I think might be helpful for you as you approach this in your own parishes. The first is simply that people are people, and most have the same struggles with some slight variations on a few themes. And I went into that ministry when we started the Courage ministry, and I was very nervous because at that time it really felt like we were sticking our neck out there, even though we were kind of aligning ourselves with this apostolate that was very well established and was approved by the church and all of this kind of thing, but it still felt like kind of on the front lines of things, and so I was very nervous. I admit I was worried about stigma, but the thing that I was most worried about was how am I going to be able to relate as a celibate heterosexual to a group of same-sex attracted men. Our group has been mostly men over the years. We've had some women that have joined from time to time, but mostly men. And what I learned is that their struggles were much, much less about sex and much, much more about intimacy. And there is a difference between those two things. We know that we kind of conflate these things very often, but the fact is you can have sex without intimacy, and you can have intimacy without sex. And every human person is built for intimacy, true intimacy with self, with others, with God, right? And so many of their struggles over the years that we've talked about, like I say, it had nothing to do with their sexuality or their sexual orientation or who they were attracted to or how they identified themselves, but more struggling in those areas of human intimacy at a much more basic level. And so that's a good thing to remember. People are people. They struggle with many of the same things that we do. So almost immediately, within the first few meetings, here I was coming in thinking, oh, I'm very different from these people. And then I realized I am not very different from these people. I am very much like these people, and they're my brothers, And so we continue to meet monthly. One of the advantages, actually, of one of the things that came out of the pandemic was we started to meet virtually, and that we travel. There's a number that belong to the group that are from outside of the diocese. Some from, because it kind of started as a merged group between the Archdiocese of Dubuque and the Diocese of Davenport. But so it made it easier for us to meet and check in with each other monthly. But also there were people that found us through the Courage website. That now we have 2, sometimes 3 members that join us from Ireland. and one that joins us from Venezuela. And so it is truly Courage International, and they've found a home in our group. It makes it really hard to get together for a summer barbecue, but we're working on that. We'd love to schedule a pilgrimage to Ireland to see our brothers over there. But second thing I've learned from that ministry is that there are LGBTQ plus people who are and want to be Catholic and who love the church and who love their Catholic faith. That was eye-opening to me because I went into that ministry kind of with my armor on, kind of ready to defend the Catholic Church and find a bunch of people that were going to be really angry with the Catholic Church. Now, granted, Courage is a little bit self-selecting in the sense they know what this apostolate is about. I always have a one-on-one meeting with the person, at least virtually, before they attend a single meeting so that I can just hear their story and hear where they're coming from. And sometimes I might say, I don't know that Courage is really the best fit for you, Or I might say, I think you would really benefit from this, and I think this would be great for you. Here's when our next meeting is going to be, and that sort of thing. So I understand that it is kind of self-selecting in this way, but I was still going into this apostolate thinking, they're gonna be gunning for me, and I found out no, these guys love the church and they are faithfully living their Catholic faith, striving to, despite even their own experiences, maybe within the church, and while still wrestling with who they are in relationship to the church. They love the Catholic Church. They love their Catholic faith. They love our traditions. They love our liturgy. They love our spirituality. They want and do continue to identify as Catholics. Not all are seeking some sort of radical change within the church in terms of doctrine or even in terms of our practices, and none in my experience are in any way trying to kind of undermine the church from within. I would say too that the thing that was kind of surprising to me there is I am edified by their faith. I am amazed at their faith, and that builds me up. And I wasn't I thought I was going in, and they're in the position of deficit, kind of what like Dr. Amy Novak was talking about. No, in many ways they're doing great. It's not to say that they're living perfect lives, and to that I say, welcome to the club. We're all trying to kind of live our Catholic faith more perfectly, but that's kind of where they're at. Third, I would say it is important to listen for understanding and not to judge. Of course, we don't judge someone's kind of person in terms of that we leave to God. But even, I would say, in terms of some of their behaviors or attitudes or circumstances, do hear their story first before you even make a judgment about some of those things, if you do at all, because there's likely a lot of reasons that they've come to this particular point in their life. So the third is just listen for understanding and don't judge. Fourth would be that many LGBTQ plus persons assume that they are not welcome in the church, and they fully anticipate being treated as such, perhaps based on their previous experiences and past treatment in the church. And so guess what? They are amazed and pleasantly surprised to be treated as human beings, as children of God, made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore by that fact alone, even before we know anything about them, are deserving of our respect and love. So those are just a few things that I would share with you from that ministry that were kind of surprising to me as I went into it. There's a lot more that can be said, and of course I'll be available for conversation after our panel as well. I think the last thing I will say is when it comes to this particular ministry and so many of the other things that we're talking about, we should not feel forced into choosing between truth and love. The truth is ultimately loving. The way that the truth is expressed is not always loving, and that's what we have to navigate very carefully, I think, as a church. And sometimes this process, as so many other people have said, takes years, not minutes. And so I'll leave you with that.